Hello adventurers of Hyperborea. This is the first in my new series of videos about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT. My name's Dave and I'm the developer of the system. For this video, we'll be creating a new character and talking about a bunch of important character sheet features as we go through the process. We're not going to focus on any particular character class, but rather show all the features that a player character might use and talk about which classes would use them. I had previously done individual videos on the 4 core classes, but during the development of the system, some things have changed, making those videos kind of obsolete. So this video is up to date on the Hyperborea system at version 1.0. Later videos will cover topics like the monster and NPC sheet, item sheets of all kinds, a demonstration of combat, and even more stuff. For this video, I'm going to make use of the Hyperborea Compendium, which is still in development, but we'll also talk about how to set up and play the game without that being available. Note that you do need to have a copy of the Hyperborea rules in order to use the system. You can find the books in PDF or physical format at the Northwind Adventures website and other resellers. I'll put a link to the publisher in the description area below. Also, this system for Foundry VTT is based on the current Hyperborea 3rd edition rules. I'm pretty sure it would work just fine for 2nd edition, and maybe even 1st edition, but since I don't have those rule sets, I have no way to test them out. So, the player's manual for Hyperborea outlines the steps of character creation in this order. Number 1, generate attributes. Number 2, choose a class. Number 3, develop a background. Number 4, purchase equipment. Number 5, determine starting spells. And number 6, record other statistics. We're going to mostly follow this order, except I'm going to choose a class right off the bat. And as we go, though, I'll cover the features of the character sheet throughout the process. So to start, let's create a new blank character. So I'm going to click Create Actor. I will call this guy Vol of Chromarium, just like that. As you can see, the character sheet opens with default 10 values for all of the attributes, which we're going to replace by rolling the dice. But first, I am going to select Purloiner. Which has a nice combination of thief skills, cleric turning undead, and spellcasting. Okay, so at the top I've done that. Now we're going to roll attributes, and we're going to follow method 3 from the player's manual for attribute generation, which is to roll 4d6 and discard the lowest die roll. Then you can assign those attributes as desired. So to roll the attributes, I can just paste this text into the chat. And here we go, lots of numbers. All right. So let's see how this shakes out in the character sheet. I'm going to assign these attributes. And for this character, I'm going to try and balance his attributes for both thief skills and spellcasting. So let's see, we've got a 16, we've got a 15, those are our top 2. So I'm going to go with 16 on Dex, and Purloiner is a cleric type subclass, so we're going to go 15 on Wisdom. And let's see, we've got a 14, 12, 10, and 10. All right, so I'm going to go 14 here. I'm going to go 12, 10 for Intelligence, 10 for Charisma should work just fine. And we have our attributes. Now to fill in the attribute modifiers, we can just click this book icon right here. And first we get a warning that it's going to replace any values already in place. We're going to click confirm, and there they are. And we've got kind of a report output of exactly everything that was calculated and populated right here in the chat window. Hey friends, Dave here. I just want to interject this little piece and mention that after running the attribute modifiers button, the bonus spells are actually not added to your sheet. This is a feature that I have in process, and the main video shows them being populated, but it's actually, there's a bug in there. So I'm working on that. By the time you see this video, it may actually be released, but otherwise currently I have this actually disabled in the actual version 1 release of the system. So bonus spells do appear right here, so it tells you what it calculated, as you can see. Bonus spells are false across there, but true on the wisdom side because my wisdom's high enough. So it does calculate them. The bug is on the update side. So anyway, long story short, it's in process. By the time you see the video, it may actually be a working little feature, but otherwise all the other fields do work. It's only the bonus spells, these little scroll options here that turn on and off when you get bonus spells. That's the only part that doesn't work with the automatic update. So when you use the attribute button, just take note of these, and if you need to say, oh look, I get 2 bonus spells for a high wisdom, just click those and turn them on, and you're good to go. Okay, back to the main video. So my recommendation here is that you should always start with the automatic assignments via the book button, just like I did in this order, since that's going to prevent you from making any typos or errors if you had to manually fill in these fields. Later, you can make any changes or customizations if your character gets, magic items or spells or whatever that might permanently modify your attributes or specific modifiers later on. After that, of course, you don't want to use the book again because it's going to wipe out any customizations that you've done. So now that we have our attributes filled in, along with the modifiers here, let's look at the lower part of the Abilities tab, the Class Abilities section right down here. Along with choosing a class, adding its abilities will finish step 2 in character creation. Now, without the compendium, you can simply add new abilities by clicking the Add Feature button like this. You see I get a new feature. I can then click the pencil and paper icon or button over here to edit the item. Pops up like this. And if I was doing like Climb, which is a standard capability or ability of thieves and subclasses, I could do that. Most of these fields are optional, not required by the system. But if the ability has some kind of skill check associated with it, you will need to fill in the check roll with the type of die roll, like a D12, D6, whatever it happens to be. It could even be a formula like D12 plus 3 if that plus 3 is built in and used all the time, or 2d6 or whatever. And the target field with your target number. And with these 2 values, the system will do a standard roll under or roll equal to or under check to determine success or failure on this ability check. Now, since I do have the compendium in development, I'm going to drag and drop items, but just to finish up this, if I wanted to fill this in, I could put in Purloiner here, or even just Thief or whatever. I could put in, is this available at level 1, or is there a level prerequisite, like maybe I only get this at level 4 or something. My check roll is going to be a D12 for climbing, and my target, I believe, for a first level thief type class is 8. So I would set it up like this, and I might also set the roll mode to a public roll. If I leave that alone, it's going to default to a public roll anyway. Sometimes you want, like, check for secret doors or something, you might want the blind GM roll selection, but public roll is your default option. And with that, that's enough. I can also click this edit button over here, and now I've got rich text. This is the description of the climb ability, whatever that would be. I could paste it, copy and paste it from the player's manual PDF as one example, and then I just do a Control-S or a Command-S on a Macintosh to save it. And there it is. Now I've got the ability there. And well, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use my compendium in development to drag and drop. So you can just watch me fast forward through this real quick here. So we'll go to the compendium. Okay, I'm back, and we've got all of these skills or abilities added to the sheet, and I think Purloiner might have more abilities than any other class in the system. So you can see I've got a pretty lengthy list here. Most classes are half this list, half this length, or even less. But first thing I'm going to show you now is the fact that you can sort these simply by dragging and dropping. So what I like to do is I like to put the basic class abilities with no level parameters in alphabetical order at the top. So if I start with something like Backstab and I slide that up there, oh, and I think Agile, yep, so I've got to get that up there. So I've got a bunch here that I need to do. I'm just going to do this really quick, and you can watch me and fast forward here. Okay, I think I'm done sorting things. So as I mentioned, I usually like to have the basic class abilities with no level prerequisites at the very top, followed by things with level prerequisites in their level number order. The previous ones are alphabetical. Then when you have level prereqs, I put them in the numeric order. And then for thief classes, where all of their abilities are on the thief abilities table, and they all have D6 checks. I put them at the bottom, again in alphabetical order. This is just the way I do it, and these again I dragged and dropped from the compendium, so you can see you've got check rolls built in, and they're displayed here. You can even have, as I mentioned, a check roll can actually be a formula. In this case, even having a variable in it for turn undead for clerics. And also targets can also be a formula like the dex feat of dexterity number, which just pulls that in from dx, feat of dx right here, pulls that 24 in automatically for you. Since many of these abilities do have a check roll, you can basically mouse over the icon on the left side here and you can see it becomes a d20. The ones that don't have a roll, they don't change to a d20, as you can see. Agile does not, Backstab does not, but Detect Secret Doors, now I've got a die, and if I click that, I get a dice roll dialog box. You can see it's going to use the d6, just like it says for the check roll. I can add a situational modifier, and you can see this one is pre-configured to say blind GM roll. And if I click the roll, I'm logged in as GM, so the GM can actually see the results right here. The player would not see that, and the GM could tell the player what they detected if there was anything there to be detected. You can also change that, of course, but that's the way it comes packaged from the compendium. Now, many thief abilities, along with some from other classes, do improve as the character levels up. In those cases, the player will need to track if and when the target number for success changes. These class abilities are also modified by the character's dexterity or other attributes in some cases, which also has to be managed by the player. So, for example, Vol's Manipulate Traps skill starts with a target number of 3, but because he has a high enough dexterity, we actually need to change this to an adjusted 4. The system does not do that for you automatically. And later, but when he reaches 3rd level as a thief, this skill's target number goes up to 4, and of course then would be modified by his DX to change to 5. So I would have to change that to a 5 manually. We'll leave it as 4 for now because that is modified. And some of these others may also be modified by his high dex. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Just realize that some of these need to be manually maintained because of all the modifiers involved, and we can't automate everything. So the system does not automatically calculate those changes because, again, there are so many other ways for a character's skills to improve. Could be by magic items, or an attribute improvement for a variety of reasons, magic or otherwise, or even through the referee homebrewing their own changes to the rules. So it's therefore incumbent upon the player to calculate the modifiers and update their abilities as needed. So you can also click the ability name to pop down its description in the character sheet. You can see Turn Undead has a fairly lengthy description here, and then I can click it again to just pop it back away. You can click the eyeball icon over here, and that will put the description over in the chat. Again, this is a fairly lengthy description, and so, you know, yeah, it's long, but at least it's available for anybody else to see, especially the GM who may not want to look it up in the book. Let's see. The pencil and paper icon, mentioned that already. That allows you to edit it. And again, you've got, you know, some of these are optional, but then you've got the check roll and the target number and all of this descriptive text, which has been pasted in from the original rules. And the trash can will allow you to delete an ability. Now, I'm not going to delete any of these right now, but I could easily just click that and it would immediately delete it permanently from the sheet. And you saw me dragging and dropping to sort the abilities. So that pretty much covers everything on this tab. So with step 2 complete, we move to step 3, which is your character background. Here we'll jump to the description tab on the character sheet and fill in most or all of these fields. Since these fields are not used by the system for any game mechanical features, I'm actually just going to skip this step, but now you know where to go when you're creating your character and you want to fill in your backstory and your physical descriptors and things like that. Just realize that the race is a drop-down list right here, and known languages are also up here rather than actually on the description tab itself. Step 4 then is purchasing equipment. So in the player's manual, each class has an optional equipment set that can just be taken as a block, and you have a few coins of gold left over. This allows you to get up and running quickly without spending a ton of time choosing all your gear. So I'm going to use this optional rule to quickly add the weapons and armor and other gear to our sheet. As with class abilities, you can either add the items manually and then edit them with whatever information is needed, or if you have the compendium, you can just drag and drop. Now, of course, I'm going to use the compendium and quickly drag and drop everything onto my sheet. And then we can take some time to look at the different item types and see how they work. But again, if you're just adding an item, you can go right here and click Add Item, and you can make up new items by editing and fill in whatever you need to, including the cost and the weight, things like that. So it's very simple, and it works basically the same as your class abilities do. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward through the compendium now and do this very quickly. Okay, I have all of my weapons and equipment added to the sheet. We're going to take a couple of minutes now and go over each item type, both for general equipment and also the weapons and the armor. But we'll start with the items tab since we're right here already. This is where all of your non-combat gear goes, with the exception of your ammunition, which does appear here. But some features to note. First of all, containers always filter to the top of the list. So we're going to see things like your backpack and your bolt case at the top. You can drag non-container items over a container, and that will move the item into the container. So I can drag my bolts up to my bolt case, and you can see that it's now indented under there, and now it is contained. You can see the location says bolt case as well. And I can do the same thing with bandages, move them up into maybe the small pouch to keep them handy. Ink and quill, maybe the same thing. Rations might go into the backpack. And I'm just going to do this very quickly here. So this should be everything. You can also move an item out of a container simply by dragging one non-container item over another non-container item. So for example, I may decide, you know what, the rope is not going to be in the backpack. He's going to just sling it over his shoulder. So I'm just going to drag it right over the rations. And now it pops down here. Rope hemp is now no longer contained by the backpack. And of course, outside the containers, I can also sort the items however I wish. Now I already have them alphabetical, but I could sort them just by dragging and dropping them over each other. That only works outside of a container. In a container, the dragging and dropping, pops it out of the container, so it won't actually resort that way. Consumable items have these little plus and minus buttons to increment and decrement. You can't actually increment it bigger than what you already have as your maximum. I'm hitting the plus here. You can see these, but as I hit the minus, it drops down. See, 20, 19, 18, 17. And then I can just very quickly bring it back up again. If I want to change the maximum number that I'm carrying, I just edit the item and change this. So maybe I've got 3 torches instead. I can just do it like that, 3 out of 3. The encumbrance section in the lower left here calculates your character's weight based only on the weapons, armor, and equipment listed in the above section. It does not include the weight of coins carried in this money column, although you could easily list that as a single item with a known weight in your regular inventory. So I could just do an add item, and with my new item here, I could just say, call it maybe carrying coin or something like that, and I could just say, this weighs like 1 pound or whatever. And now it's on there, and now that it's listed here with I did the wrong one. Weight of 1, there we go. And now that it's listed here, you can see that my weight went from 58 to 59 pounds. You can also remove that. Now my weight dropped back to 58 again. So you can just add your money that way. Treasure is also not included because this is a rich text field where you can have a bulleted list or just a comma separated list or whatever, but it's not intended to be storing numeric values. So it then therefore would not show up as weight carried. From here, we'll go to the combat tab. Let's start with weapons and armor, since they're very similar to the equipment list we were just looking at. So there's no containers here, of course. So you can still drag and drop to sort your weapons and just drag crossbow up there. Maybe that's my primary weapon, so I want it at the top. Or in my case, I prefer things just to be in alphabetical order, so I'll put it back down there. Ammunition is displayed here as well, similarly to being on the items tab, but here now you can very quickly use ammunition in combat by just decrementing it as you go. And then if you recover some of those bolts after a battle, you can just plus them back up again. So it's very simple to manage your ammunition right from the combat tab, both during and immediately after a fight. Weapons and armor can both be equipped with this t-shirt button right here. For weapons, there's no mechanical effect on the system or the sheet, just toggling it on and off, but it can serve as a friendly reminder of what you're currently prepared to use. And maybe I do carry my crossbow in hand, so that's what I've always got prepped should a battle suddenly erupt. Armor, though, is different, because when I equip or unequip the armor, it also affects my armor class and my DR, if there is a DR value attached to the armor, which with scale mail there is. So watch, as I equip it, my AC dropped from 8 to 5, and my DR went from 0 to 1. If I unequip, goes back to 8 and 0, re-equip goes to 5 and 1, as you can see. It does not affect your move. So there is a move value here. However, there's other things that can affect your move, spells, boots of speed, whatever. So we don't actually auto-calculate this. So you can just update that yourself just like that and maintain it going forward. So now let's review the upper sections, the fighting skills and the combat stats here. Under fighting skills, we fill in the character's fighting ability, or rather we used the assign values book over here that automatically took care of it for us, and it assigned the -2 unskilled penalty. We did not get, however, the list of weapons that they're automatically proficient in. I'm just going to copy those from the player's handbook into here. So there we go. Those are my favored weapons. Now, for fighters and their subclasses, which are automatically, and also runegravers, which are automatically proficient with all weapons, you could just put any in your favored weapons. But you might also want to put your weapon masteries listed here for those fighters and subclasses. So you might just say, like if I was doing a fighter as an example, I would probably do something like, let's just delete that. I might say any, but then I would say longsword mastery. And then at level 4, they get another mastery. You might say longsword grand mastery. I believe you can do that. Or you could change it to short bow mastery as a second mastered weapon. That would be for fighters. For thieves and, well, non-fighter classes, let's just put it that way. Once again, I'm going to paste in my weapons, but I could now add, I'm not sure if longsword here, but I can just add, just like that. So you can add those when they're leveling up. On the combat stats side, first we set up the hit dice, which is actually updated correctly when we did that attributes book icon. So that's already there. When we hit the hit die roll option here, it's going to add our CN, our Constitution modifier, which in my case is 0, but otherwise it would add that. So I can roll my hit points just like that. And I've got a lovely 2 starting hit points. Not the best roll in the world, but there we go. Fill in the hit points there. Last on the combat tab, we fill in the saving throws by just looking them up in the book and then applying the class modifiers. So for a purloiner, I get a +2 on avoidance and a +2 on sorcery. So we start at 16 as our base for first level, but avoidance and sorcery are going to have +2, so we're going to change those to 14, just like that. And there we go. We've got our saving throws filled in. That's the rest of the combat tab. And that finishes this step in character creation. Now we move to step 5, selecting our starting spells. So we'll go to the spells tab. Now for a purloiner, or really any spellcaster, we start with 3 spells in the spellbook, of which he can have 1 of them memorized and usable per day. The memorizable is then adjusted by his intelligence or wisdom bonus spells, assuming he has any. So, and also if a magician has a familiar, he may get additional bonus spells. But our purloiner won't have that, so we can just start with his base spells plus wisdom-based bonus spells. So we'll check wisdom first, and sure enough, he's got a level 1 bonus spell and a level 2 bonus spell. You can tell by the tooltips there. Now, of course, he can't cast level 2 spells yet, so we're just going to give him that level 1 bonus to start. So, whoops, go to spells, and we're going to change this from a 1 to a 2. That's his usable or memorizable spells per day. And of course, he's going to start with 3 spells in his spellbook. So you can use these to track. They're just for tracking purposes. He doesn't have level 2 or higher spells, so we're just going to leave those empty. of course, like I said, this is 1 plus his bonus spell of 1, so that's a 2. When he gets here and he gets 1 level 2 spell, of course that wisdom bonus will apply and it'll start at 2, and they will always go up from there. Let's look at how to enter a new spell as if you didn't have access to the compendium. So over on the right, we can just click add level whatever to add that appropriate level spell. So let's maybe we're going to add Cure Light Wounds. So we're just going to add level 1. We get this new spell, of course. Then we're going to click the pencil on paper icon to edit. Most of these fields are informational, but there are 2 that affect the mechanics of the system: the attack roll checkbox and the damage field right below it. The damage field takes a rollable formula, and you can use system variables in the formula, and I'll show some examples of that later from the compendium. So let's fill in these fields and close the new spell. So we'll just say, I don't know, it's got a range of 60 feet, and it's a duration of instantaneous as an example, because we were going to do Cure Light Wounds, right? So let's just do that. Again, it doesn't matter if I put Cleric or rather Purloiner, because that is actually my class, but we could say that, and we can just say 1 person. There's no attack roll required, and we're going to do 1d8 for healing purposes, and then heals 1d8 hit points. This is just a rich text editor like so many others in the system. It's all built in. So we've got that set there. Close that up. So in the spells table, this list here, we've got a few bits of key information. First of all, we've got the range and the duration, of course. If there's a saving throw that applies. You can also, as with items and weapons, click the name to drop down its description right here. You can click the plus or minus that tells you what you've got memorized. Now this works differently than the inventory quantities, because you can just increase this. You can't go higher than 9, and of course you can't go below 0. This is just informational though, anyway. So if you forgot to mark it memorized, the system will still let you cast the spell. And let's see, you can click the eyeball button to pop the spell description, but also some of the fields over to the chat as well. So it's not just the Cure Light Wounds heals 1d8 description here, but you also get the range, the duration, as you can see right here, and the damage becomes a rollable button, just like this. So I can actually roll 1d8, and look at that, I just healed someone of 1 hit point because I'm rolling really well today. Of course, the edit button, I already showed that, and the trash button to delete it. Okay, now I'm going to use the compendium actually to drag a few spells. So I'm just going to delete this one for now, and we'll drag some spells onto Val's character sheet. Okay, we've got our spells selected here in our spell book. Now we're just going to set a couple of them to memorize. So I'm going to get Bless and Cure Light Wounds for memorization. I'm just going to plus on both of those. Now if we mouse over the book next to any spell, regardless of whether it has an attack roll or not, we're going to get the same D20 icon, just like with weapons. Click that button to cast the spell. Now if the spell has an attack roll, which Cure Light Wounds is set up that way, it's going to show the formula just like a weapon attack would do. D20 plus your fighting ability, that's the @FA, that's your fighting ability variable. If there's no attack roll, I'll cancel this, like Bless. You see it has this comment saying there's no attack roll required. Either way, we can click the cast button to cast the spell. So I'm going to do that, and it'll either roll an attack or not, in this case not. It also decremented my number memorized. So you saw I had actually made this a 1, but it just went down to 0 when I cast the spell. If your memorization number was already 0, it'll not go negative, and the system will still let you cast the spell. It's just there for information and to help you, but not to get in your way. Now remember the attack roll checkbox on the spell sheet? Toggling that, I'm going to actually open up Cure Light Wounds to show you. So here it is checked, but if it was off, there would be no formula here, right? If I just get, well, because I have it checked, it puts it back in there automatically. But if I take that off, I can now delete this. So no attack roll, no here, no formula. But if I now do an attack roll, it assigns the default formula just like that. This is for GMs, by the way. If you're creating your own spells and you have an attack spell like Acid Arrow or something, or even the reverse of Cure Light Wounds, Cause Light Wounds, you have to make an attack roll to touch your foe to affect them by the spell. So you would have that set up like that. This formula can also be edited by the GM, so you could add the strength melee attack bonus, which would be at str.atk mod. That would add your melee attack bonus. Or if this is going to be like Acid Arrow, it would be your dex attack modifier, dex.atk mod. This is case sensitive, by the way. But for Cure Light Wounds, we're not even going to do that. We're just going to leave it as this. I'm sorry, Cause Light Wounds, I should say. We're doing the opposite thereof, right? Cure Light Wounds, you could do that. You could actually use the attack roll. It's harmless. For example, if you wanted to use it on an undead, cause them some damage. That's built in that way. So, anyways, that's more information than maybe was necessary just to talk about the attack roll. In fact, I have a later video on combat that I did that talked in more depth about how some of this stuff works. So that's basically all I've got to say about spells. So step 6, of course, would be applying other statistics. Well, we sort of covered all that when we went through combat, so it was sort of built into everything else we've talked about. So that really does complete character creation for Hyperborea. We covered all 6 steps, not exactly in perfect order, but mostly in order in the creation process, where to find the different kinds of information on the character sheet, and a few features that the sheet provides, like spell memorization and casting, item quantity tracking, ammunition, and the attack rolls, etc. So, of course, there will be more to come in later videos as we cover the monster and NPC sheet, more on combat and spell casting in greater depth, etc. So, be sure to check back soon to learn more about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT.